You think you know everything about extinct civilizations, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because sometimes the dead aren't quite as extinct as you thought. And when a human asks why an ancient artifact looks exactly like her family jewelry, well, that's when your entire understanding of galactic history goes straight out the nearest airlock. Professor Thaxion smoothed down the silvery feathers on his neck, a nervous habit he'd developed over 3 decades of teaching xenoarchaeology at the Galactic Academy. Today's lecture was supposed to be simple, boring even. Ancient relics from dead species, display cases, holographic projections, students pretending to take notes while secretly browsing their datapads. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. The central archives hall stretched upward like the ribcage of some massive beast, all gleaming metal and transparent brochures that let you see down into the storage vaults below. Thousands of artifacts from civilizations that had flickered and died before most current species had even cradled out of their primordial soup. It was magnificent. It was sobering. It was, frankly, a little depressing. Class, please direct your attention to Vault 7, Thaxion announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. His translator collar hummed softly. These items date back approximately 40,000 standard cycles. The species designation is unknown. Precursor culture 17. We believe they achieved interstellar travel, then vanished completely within a 2000 cycle window. No survivors, no descendants, nothing but these fragments. 23 students from 11 different species shuffled closer to the massive display case. Most looked appropriately interested, a few looked appropriately bored, and one, the human, looked like she'd just seen a ghost. Thaxion noticed, of course. You didn't survive 30 years of teaching without developing a sixth sense for when a student was about to either vomit or ask a question that would derail your entire lesson plan. The human's name was Kira Vex, if he remembered correctly. Humans always picked such dramatic surnames when they left their homeworld. Something about sounding more galactic. She had dark skin, darker hair pulled back in what humans called braids, and the kind of intense stare that made you want to check if your feathers were on straight. Professor? Her hand shot up. Here we go. Yes, Miss Vex. Why is my grandmother's family Crest in that case? The entire class went silent. Even the quelling student who'd been making soft snoring sounds jerked awake. Thexion's feathers fluffed involuntarily. I beg your pardon? Kira stepped closer to the display case, her boots clicking on the transparent floor. She pointed at a small metallic pendant, maybe 3 centimeters across, hanging on a thin chain. It was beautifully crafted, depicting what looked like a stylized bird in flight, wings spread, with geometric patterns radiating outward in precise mathematical sequences. That, she said, her voice dangerously calm, that's my family crest. My grandmother has one exactly like it. She said it's been passed down for, quote, longer than anyone can remember. So either someone in my family is a really good thief who broke into the most secure archive in the known galaxy, or your dating system is spectacularly broken. A nervous laugh rippled through the class. Thaxion did not laugh. His species didn't technically have the facial structure for proper laughter anyway, but if they did, he wouldn't be using it right now. Miss Vex, I can assure you that our carbon dating, quantum decay analysis, and temporal signature verification are all extremely accurate. This artifact is 40,000 cycles old, minimum. Cool. Kira nodded slowly. So my family is 40,000 cycles old. That's fine. That's totally fine. Nothing weird about that at all. Your species has only been spacefaring for 300 cycles, Thaxion pointed out, trying to keep his voice level. Educational. Professorial. Not at all panicked. Yeah, I'm aware. Kira pulled out her datapad, fingers flying across the screen. But we've been planet-bound a lot longer than that, Professor. And my grandmother's stories always mentioned that our family was special. I thought she meant we made good soup or something, not that we were apparently ancient cosmic mysteries. She held up her datapad. On the screen was a photograph of an elderly human woman, wrinkled and smiling, wearing a pendant around her neck. The image quality wasn't great, but even from 3 meters away, Thaxion could see it. The design was identical, not similar, not kind of close, identical, down to the last geometric spiral. That's not possible, he muttered. And yet, Kira said, her tone dripping with what humans called sarcasm, here we are, possibility achieved, reality broken. How's your Tuesday going, Professor? The Quellan student raised a tentacle. Does this mean humans are unknown precursor culture 17? No, Thaxion said immediately. Then, less certainly, no, we have genetic samples from the precursors. They're nothing like humans. Different biology entirely. Silicon-based, we think. Maybe crystalline protein structures. The data is fragmentary, but definitely not carbon-based mammals. So someone copied someone's homework, offered a young Drick student, her scales shimmering with amusement. Either ancient humans copied dead aliens, or dead aliens somehow predicted human jewelry 40,000 years before humans existed. I'm not a temporal physicist, but that second one seems tricky. Kira turned to face the class, and Thaxion saw something in her expression that made his blood run cold. It was the look of someone who'd just realized they were standing in the middle of a puzzle they absolutely had to solve. Consequences be damned. Or, she said slowly, option 3. My family is from wherever unknown precursor culture 17 came from, somehow survived when everyone else died, ended up on Earth, and has been quietly existing there for 40,000 years while pretending to be normal humans. That's insane, Thaxion said. Is it though? Kira gestured at the display case. Because unless you've got option 4 handy, I'm starting to think insane is exactly what we're dealing with. The class erupted into excited chatter. Thaxion tried to restore order, but his hearts weren't in it. Both of them were beating too fast, pumping his silvery blood in a rhythm that screamed danger, mystery, impossible things. Everyone, please. This is clearly a coincidence. Convergent design, parallel cultural evolution. These things happen. Do they though? Kira asked. She wasn't being rude. Exactly. Just persistent. Humans were good at persistent. Professor, I took your intro course last semester. You spent 3 entire lectures explaining how the mathematical probability of 2 species independently developing identical complex symbolic systems was basically 0. Damn it! She'd been paying attention. Access the database, Kira continued, still tapping on her datapad. Look up my family name. Vex. Not my human name, my actual name. The one that's been in my family for, well, apparently forever. Thaxion hesitated, then activated his own interface. The holographic display bloomed in the air between them. He entered the query. The system hummed, processing, searching through genealogical records from 10,000 species across 50,000 cycles of documented history. The results appeared. Oh no, Thaxion whispered. Oh yes, Kira replied, her smile sharp enough to cut steel. The name Vex appeared in the historical database exactly once. In a fragment of text recovered from, surprise surprise, unknown precursor culture, 17. It was part of what researchers had interpreted as a ceremonial title or family designation. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear enough. Vex. Those who watch, those who remain, those who survive. So Kira said into the stunned silence. Anyone want to tell me what the hell my ancestors were watching for? And why they're apparently still doing it 40,000 years later? Thaxion's feathers went completely flat against his body, the avian equivalent of a human going pale. Miss Vex, I think we need to speak with the archive director. Immediately. You think? Kira's laugh was short and sharp. Professor, I'm standing in a room full of my people's stuff, none of whom are supposed to exist anymore, wearing a genetic legacy that apparently predates recorded history. Yeah, I'd say the archive director might want to be involved. The other students were recording everything on their datapads now. Of course. By tonight this would be all over the Academy network. By tomorrow probably all over the sector. A human connected to an extinct precursor culture. The media would lose their collective minds. Class dismissed, Faxin announced, his voice barely steady. We'll resume next week, Miss Vex, with me, now. As the students filed out buzzing with excited speculation, Kira followed Fax's iron toward the archive's administrative wing. She moved with the easy confidence of someone who'd just discovered they were part of the biggest archaeological mystery in galactic history, and was absolutely going to get answers. So, she said, conversationally, on a scale of 1 to galaxy-ending catastrophe, how worried should I be right now? Fax didn't answer, mostly because he didn't know. His entire professional understanding of xenoarchaeology was currently being fed through a shredder, and he had no idea what would come out the other side. They reached the director's office. Faxion pressed the access panel. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Director Calthin looked up from her desk, all 7 eyes blinking in sequence. She was Mordethean, which meant she was about 3 times Faxion's size, and had a reputation for being absolutely impossible to surprise. Professor Thaxam, she rumbled, her voice like distant thunder. I wasn't expecting you until this afternoon. Who's your guest? Director Thaxion said, his voice tight. I need you to run a full temporal analysis on this student. Right now. And then I need you to tell me I'm wrong about what I think I've found. Calthin's eyes focused on Kira with laser intensity. And what do you think you've found? Kira held up her datapad, showing the photograph of her grandmother's pendant and the matching artifact in the vault below. A human, Thaxion said quietly, who might be the last living connection to a civilization that died 40,000 years ago. For the first time in her 2-century career, Director Calthin looked genuinely shocked. Oh, she said. And that, Kira thought with grim satisfaction, was the exact moment the universe got a whole lot more complicated. The medical wing of the Galactic Academy smelled like sterile nothing, which was somehow worse than smelling like something. Kira sat on the examination platform, watching a dozen different scanning devices rotate around her like very judgmental moons orbiting a very confused planet. Director Calthin stood by the main console, all 7 eyes fixed on the scrolling data. Professor Thaxion paced back and forth, his clawed feet clicking against the floor in an anxious rhythm that was starting to drive Kira slightly insane. So, Kira said, breaking the tense silence, anyone want to tell me what these scans are looking for? Besides the obvious answer of ancient alien DNA, which, let's be honest, would really explain why my family reunions are so weird. Coulson's primary eyes swiveled toward her. Miss Vex, I need you to understand something. If your genetic markers match the precursor samples we have on file, this doesn't just rewrite your family history, it rewrites galactic history. The precursors were theorized to be silicon-based lifeforms. You are demonstrably carbon-based. The biological impossibility alone would disturb certain fundamental assumptions about evolutionary biology. Love that for me, Kira muttered. Really wanted to be a walking contradiction of science today. It was on my to-do list right after lunch. The scanner beeped. Then it beeped again faster. Then it started making a sound like a very distressed mechanical bird. That's not a good sound, is it? Kira asked. Thaxion stopped pacing. That's the sound the scanner makes when it finds something it doesn't have a classification for. Again, Kira said. Love that for me. Calthin manipulated the holographic display, expanding sections of data that looked like abstract art had a baby with a math textbook. Her eyes widened, which was disturbing because she had 7 of them and they were already pretty wide to begin with. Impossible, she breathed. You keep using that word, Kira said. I'm starting to think it doesn't mean what you think it means. Your DNA, Calthin said slowly, each word carefully measured, contains sequences that don't exist in any known human genome. Specifically sequences that match, partially fragmentarily but undeniably, the genetic material we recovered from precursor sites. The room went very, very quiet. Okay, Kira said, proud that her voice only shook a little. Okay. So what does that mean? Like, am I human? Am I alien? Am I some kind of genetic chimera situation? You're human, Thaxion said quickly. Completely human. The sequences are, they're dormant, inactive. Like like genetic echoes, fossil code written into your biology. That's poetic, Kira said, terrifying but poetic. So my ancestors were, what? Precursors who somehow became human? Precursors who interbred with early humans? Precursors who decided carbon biology was trendy and switched teams? Kulth then pulled up another display. According to temporal markers in your genetic material, these sequences are approximately 43,000 cycles old. 3,000 cycles before the precursors supposedly went extinct, Thaxion added, his feathers rustling. Miss Vex, I think your family didn't survive the extinction. I think they left before it happened. Kira's brain felt like it was trying to process too much information through too small a pipe. Left? Left where? To Earth? Why? That, Calvin said grimly, is an excellent question. The door to the medical bay hissed open. A tall, angular figure stepped inside, moving with the kind of precision that screamed military training. They wore the dark uniform of Academy security, but the insignia on their collar was something Kira had never seen before. Director, the figure said. Their voice filtered through a translator that gave everything a slightly metallic echo. We have a situation. Agent Morrow, Calthen acknowledged. What kind of situation? The kind where 3 unidentified ships just appeared in high orbit, running full stealth configurations, and are very politely requesting to speak with. Morrow checked their datapad. Kira Vex, designated last scion of the Watchers, regarding matters of historical security and immediate galactic concern. Everyone turned to look at Kira. I'm sorry, she said, but what the actual hell? Morrow's expression didn't change. Kira wasn't even sure what species they were. Something bipedal and professional looking. The ships identify themselves as Remnant fleet. They claim to have been, quote, waiting for this moment for 40,000 years, end quote. Waiting for what moment? Thaxion demanded. What are they talking about? Me, apparently, Kira said faintly. They're talking about me. Because my Tuesday wasn't weird enough already. Calton's eyes narrowed, which with 7 eyes was quite the effect. Remnant fleet? I've never heard of any organization by that name. Because they don't exist in any official registry, Morrow said. No government claims them. No species acknowledges them. But their ships are running technology that's at least 1,500 cycles more advanced than anything currently in operation. And they're armed. Very, very armed. Of course they are, Kira said. Why wouldn't they be? Ancient mystery fleet shows up. Obviously, they're armed. That's just common sense. They're requesting permission to send a representative to speak with Miss Vex. Morrow continued. They're being polite about it, but there's an implication that refusing would be unwise. Threatening the Academy? Calthen's voice dropped to a dangerous rumble. On Academy ground? Not threatening. Suggesting. Very firmly suggesting. Morrow looked at Kira. Miss Vex, the decision is ultimately yours. But I'd recommend speaking with them, if only to find out what they want. Kira laughed. A slightly hysterical sound. Sure, why not? Let's add mysterious ancient fleet representatives to the list of impossible things happening today. Should I prepare questions? Make small talk? Ask about their ship mileage? I'll be present for the meeting, Calthen declared. As will Academy security. Whatever these people want, they're not taking one of our students without proper procedure. Appreciate that, Kira said. Really do. Though I'm getting the feeling that proper procedure went out the window somewhere around the time I recognized ancient alien jewelry. 30 minutes later, Kira found herself in the Academy's diplomatic reception hall, which was the fancy name for a big room with comfortable chairs and really awkward lighting. Calthen sat on her left, radiating protective authority. Thaxion sat on her right, feathers fluffed with nervous energy. Morrow stood by the door, hand resting on what was definitely a weapon. The doors opened. The representative who walked in was human, or at least, looked human. Same basic build, same general features, but something about the way they moved was off, too precise, too controlled, like watching someone who'd learned to be human from a manual. They wore dark clothing that might have been a uniform or might have been fashion. Hard to tell. Around their neck hung a pendant identical to the one in the archives vault. identical to the one Kira's grandmother wore. Kira Vex, the representative said, their voice warm but somehow distant. Thank you for agreeing to meet. My name is Thorne. I speak for the Remnant fleet, and in a way for your family. My family already has plenty of speakers. Thanks, Kira said, keeping her voice steady. My grandmother's particularly chatty, so why don't you skip the mysterious introduction and tell me what you want? Thorne smiled. It looked practiced. Direct. Good. That's a Vex trait. Your line has always valued efficiency. They sat down across from Kira, moving with that same unsettling precision. 43,000 cycles ago, our people, your people, realized something terrible. The civilization we'd built was dying, not from war, not from disease, from success. Going to need you to explain that, Keldin rumbled. We became too advanced, Thorne said simply. We solved material scarcity, conquered death, eliminated suffering, and in doing so we eliminated purpose. Birth rates dropped to nothing. Innovation stopped. We were becoming a civilization of immortals with nothing to live for. They paused. So the Watchers, your family line, made a choice. What choice? Kira asked, though part of her already knew, already understood. To leave, to find a young species, humanity, and integrate, to become mortal again, to remember what it meant to struggle, to grow, to die, to preserve not just our knowledge, but our capacity for change. Thorne's eyes met Kira's, and for the first time she saw real emotion there. Your family has been on Earth for 40,000 years, Kira, watching, waiting, protecting humanity's development. Protecting from what? Thaxian asked sharply. From us, Thorne said. From the rest of the precursors who chose differently, who chose to ascend instead of integrate, who became something else, something that views younger species as resources to be harvested or experiments to be studied. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. You're saying there are hostile precursors out there? Kalzin demanded. Still active? Still operational? Not hostile. Indifferent. Which is worse? Thorne leaned forward. They've been dormant for millennia, but our senses indicate they're waking up, and when they do, they'll look at the galaxy and see thousands of young species ripe for assessment. Your family's job, Kira, has always been to stand between humanity and that assessment, to ensure that when the Ascended return, humanity is ready, strong enough, smart enough, dangerous enough that they'll be treated as equals rather than specimens. Kira's mind raced. So what? I'm supposed to what? Activate some ancient defense protocol? Press a magic button that saves humanity? No, Thorne said. You're supposed to choose. The Watchers always have a choice. You can activate the genetic legacy in your DNA, access the full knowledge and abilities your ancestors locked away, and help prepare humanity for what's coming. Or you can walk away, live your life as a normal human, let history unfold as it will. That's not a choice, Kira said quietly. That's an ultimatum dressed up with pretty words. Yes, Thorne agreed. It is. I'm sorry, your ancestors were trying to give you a chance at normalcy, but the universe has other plans. Kira stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. She walked to the window, looking out at the academy grounds below. Students from 100 species moving between buildings, laughing, arguing, learning, living their lives without knowing that ancient cosmic horrors might be waking up with bad intentions. If I do this, she said, not turning around, if I activate whatever's in my DNA, what happens to me? Do I stop being human? You'll always be human, Thorne said softly. That's the point. Your family chose mortality, chose limitation, chose humanity. Nothing we do will change that. You'll just remember. Remember what your people knew. Remember what they built. Remember what they sacrificed so that species like humanity could have a future. Sounds lonely, Kira said. It is, Thorne admitted. The Watchers have always been lonely. It's part of the price. Kira turned back to face the room, looked at Kalsin, at Thaxon, at Morrow, at Thorne, all of them waiting for her decision. All of them depending on what she chose next. Thorne nodded slowly. Agreed. That's acceptable, Thorne said. No, Kira corrected. Now I sound like a human. There's a difference. Thaxian made a sound that might have been a laugh. Miss Vex. You're going to give me a heart attack. Get in line, Professor, Kira said. I'm pretty sure I'm giving myself 3 heart attacks simultaneously. Thorne stood, pulling out a small device from their pocket. It looked like a combination between medical equipment and something from a science fiction fever dream. When you're ready, this will initiate the activation sequence. It won't hurt, but you'll remember everything. 40,000 years of Watcher history downloaded directly into your consciousness. It's intense. Kira took the device, turned it over in her hands. Such a small thing to contain such massive consequences. One question, she said. Why now? Why did the universe decide that today specifically was the day to explode my entire sense of reality? She was giving you the gift of a normal childhood, Thorne said. It's what every Watcher parent does. They let their children be children, until the day curiosity inevitably leads them home. Kira looked down at the device in her hand, then up at the faces surrounding her. Director Calthin, concerned but determined. Professor Thaxans, terrified but supportive. Agent Morrow, professional and ready. Thorne, patient and understanding. Well, she said, here's to family traditions, cosmic responsibility, and really complicated Tuesdays. She pressed the activation button. The universe downloaded itself into her brain. And Kira Vex, last active scion of the Watchers, first line of defense against the Ascended, and quite possibly the galaxy's newest cosmic guardian, discovered that her grandmother had been absolutely right about one thing. Their family did make really good soup. Everything else? That was going to take some getting used to.